Imagine you are floating in the ocean. The water is cold. The waves are relentless. You spin around looking for land. North, south, east, west, nothing. Just an endless, terrifying blue horizon. You are at coordinates 48 degrees south, 123 degrees west, the South Pacific Ocean. If you were to scream for help, no one on Earth would hear you. In fact, if you looked at a map, you would realize something chilling. The nearest humans to you are not in Chile. They are not in New Zealand. They are not on any island. If you look up, you might see a streak of light crossing the sky. That is the International Space Station. The astronauts inside are only 400 kilometers away from you. The nearest humans on land, they are over 2,700 kilometers away. You are in the most isolated place on the entire planet. Welcome to Point Nemo. Nemo is Latin for no one, a fitting name for a place that is the literal definition of emptiness. Geographers call this the Oceanic pole of inaccessibility. It is the geometric center of the ocean, the point furthest from any land in any direction. To reach the nearest solid ground, you would have to travel 2,688 kilometers to Ducie Island in the north, Motu Nui in the northeast, or Maher Island in Antarctica to the south. To put that in perspective, that's like traveling from London to Moscow, but swimming. Surprisingly, we didn't discover this point by sailing there. It was calculated in 1992 by a Croatian-Canadian survey engineer named Hrvoje Lukatela. He realized that the Earth isn't a perfect sphere, so he used complex computer software to account for the planet's ellipsoid shape. He found the loneliest coordinate on the map, but simply being far away isn't what makes Point Nemo terrifying. It's what lies beneath and what falls from above. If you think Point Nemo is empty, you're wrong. The ocean floor here is littered with the corpses of history's greatest technological achievements. Because Point Nemo is so far from human civilization and shipping lanes, space agencies like NASA, ESA, and Roscosmos use it as a dumping ground. It is officially known as the Spacecraft Cemetery. When a satellite or a space station reaches the end of its life, engineers have to crash it safely. They aim for Point Nemo. Over 260 spacecraft have been laid to rest here. The most famous resident is the massive Russian space station Mir. In 2001, it broke apart in the atmosphere, and its burning wreckage plunged into these waters. Somewhere down there, in the crushing darkness, lie the remains of Jules Verne Fenper TV, giving the ocean floor a sci-fi dystopian look. And in the future, the International Space Station itself is scheduled to crash here around 2031. The astronauts you are closer to than anyone else will eventually send their home to join you in the deep. But what about life? Surely the ocean here is teeming with sharks, whales, and fish. Actually, no. Point Nemo is what biologists call a dead zone. It sits right inside the South Pacific Gyre, a massive system of rotating ocean currents. These currents block nutrient-rich waters from entering the center. Without nutrients, there is no plankton. Without plankton, there are no small fish. Without small fish, there are no predators. It is a biological desert. The water is incredibly clear, but it is a haunting clarity. Aside from some bacteria and small crabs near volcanic vents on the seafloor, Point Nemo is almost completely sterile. It is a vast, wet wasteland, or so we thought, until we heard the sound. In 1997, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, detected an ultra-low-frequency sound emanating from the deep Pacific, very close to Point Nemo. It was incredibly loud enough to be heard by sensors 5,000 kilometers apart. They called it the Bloop. Scientists were baffled. The sound profile looked organic, like a whale call. But to be that loud, the creature would have to be larger than a blue whale, larger than anything known to science. Internet theorists went wild. They pointed out a chilling coincidence. Decades earlier, horror writer H.P. Lovecraft wrote The Call of Cthulhu. In his book, The Sunken City of R'lyeh, where the monster Cthulhu sleeps, is located at specific coordinates. Those coordinates are shockingly close to Point Nemo. Was a monster waking up? Sadly, or perhaps luckily, the answer was found years later. The bloop was consistent with an ice quake, a massive iceberg cracking and fracturing off Antarctica. The sound of nature, not a monster. But the coincidence remains unsettled. The most isolated place on Earth is exactly where we imagined our deepest fears would hide. Point Nemo represents the ultimate limit of our planet. It is a place of contradictions. It is the graveyard of space travel, yet devoid of earthly life. It is peaceful, yet terrifying. So, if you ever feel lonely, just remember, you could be floating at 48 degrees south, 123 degrees west, where the silence is so heavy, you can almost hear the satellites falling. Thanks for joining us on this journey to the middle of nowhere. If you want to explore more hidden corners of our universe, don't forget to subscribe to BrightMind. See you in the next video.